Okay, everybody, it is noon on April 1st. There won't be any April Fool's jokes today. So will the clerk please call the roll?
Bob,
Here.
Jay,
Here.
Mark,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Donna,
Excused.
Rob,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
thank you.
Okay, with that, we have 6 assembly members attending the meeting today. It's now time for a voluntary pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item 3, is I need a motion for approval of the assembly meeting minutes from March 18th. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Member Fine Walsh, I'm assuming you're in favor, but I haven't heard of.
Yes,
you must.
that's an aye from me. No opposition.
Okay, clerk, can you turn him up a little bit? I even have my hearing aids turned up, but anyway, that's approved. Next item 4, amendment and approval of the meeting agenda today. I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented, or agenda rather.
I would like to make a amendment if I can ask a question if it's possible.
Okay, let's get it on the floor with the motion in a second first, please.
Okay. Make the motion, so moved.
Second. Okay, Member Newman.
Is it possible to add the topic of the distribution of the funds from the sale of the Wecon sale and also, well, the Wecon sale and potential future sale of Island Refrigeration to go to the Harbor Enterprise Fund?
Could I ask the clerk if that's possible, since something like that was not on the agenda?
So you wouldn't necessarily want to make it an action item because it has not been advertised to the public. You could make it a discussion item if you wanted to talk about it, but you can't, you shouldn't take action on it because the public doesn't know. It hasn't been advertised on an agenda.
That was my thought. So we could discuss it later in the meeting and then add it to a future agenda?
Correct.
Yeah, does that sound good? Okay, if there's no other amendments to today's meeting agenda, all those in favor of proceeding like the agenda is presented to us, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move ahead with the agenda as presented. First item, action item today is 5. It's a public hearing, actually. It's on ordinance 2024-05. This is an ordinance determining that property conveyed to the borough in a tax foreclosure proceeding shall not be retained for a public purpose and shall hereafter be sold. So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience wanting to testify to this public hearing? Seeing none, is there anyone zooming in besides our assembly member?
No, there are none.
Okay. So seeing there's no interest, that public hearing is closed. Public hearing for an application to purchase borough-owned tidelands by Island Refrigeration LLC. Brock Snyder, owner of Island Refrigeration LLC, has filed an application to purchase a borough-owned tideland lot located on the south side of Dock Street. The legal description: a portion of Wilson Tidelands lease, plot number 2000-6 T37, parcel ID number 01010035. Any public testimony regarding this tideland purchase application should be given during this public hearing. A copy of the application is in the agenda under item 15C. The code, Borough Code 16.16.070, sale of tidelands, requires that at the public hearing, the applicant clearly demonstrates the benefits of sale of the subject tidelands that could not be realized through leasing, and that outright sale of a tideland as contrasted with lease of the tideland is in the borough's best interest. And I believe we will take that up actually later in the meeting. We'll have Mr. Snyder testify at that point. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify?
Actually, Mayor, Mr. Snyder testifies first here under this public hearing, and then the public after. If you keep reading, down in the narrative,
I was reading in the ordinance and it looked to me like it was, oh, okay. Anyway, is there anyone that would like to testify in this public hearing about this, land sale? Mr. Snyder, please.
I'm Brock Snyder. I've got Island Refrigeration. I really appreciate all you guys' consideration of this. It's like, I know there's been a lot of thought. So I'll just reiterate, I started Island Refrigeration in 2021 in September. And we started out in the little red barn behind Piston and Rudder in that floating shop. And that we've outgrown that. And then we moved out to 271 Metcalf to the old Hammer Marine building. And we've filled that, and I've invested everything I have into that business. And just so trying to become part of the infrastructure of our fleet. And as we all know, like, land is very hard to find and very expensive, but this will just be a tremendous help to us. First of all, so we don't have to commute back and forth. We can gain efficiency where we don't have to drive back and forth and consume all that time. And that can reduce the cost to the fishermen and increase what we're able to get done. And currently I'm paying $5,100 a month in rent. And it's just going away. I don't have any way to control how a building has changed because it's not mine. So just being able to have the liberty to build what we need to build and change what we need to change when we need to change it, to pivot to support the fleet. That's crucial to our future. And also just this, it's very difficult to get a good loan. I've only been able to find a couple courses where if I leased the land, I don't have any equity. So I've injected everything into my inventory, and my inventory doesn't have very good value for collateral. So the land, if I were to purchase it, would become immediately collateral for itself. And then I could invest in it and build equity. And that's what I desperately need. It's like we have the tools we need, but we don't have ballast. So, but as far as benefits that this would give, I hope that I've tried to get with each one of you just to see what we're doing, and that you can see that what we're doing is 100% catered to this community and to our fleet and its success. And we're supporting and maintaining a valuable part of every single boat in the fleet, as well as drawing other people to Petersburg and boats from Bellingham and Kodiak and Seward and Cordova and Juneau and Ketchikan and Craig and Sitka. We're bringing people in from everywhere, and that bolsters our whole economy. It helps Piston and Rudder, it helps Napa, it helps Hammer and Weecon, it helps everyone. And so just the sales and the revenue that brings to town, as well as just like we're using the drive down. There was a moment in this spring where we had 4 boats that we were all working on at the drive down. We had the thing full, and using that. That's an awesome piece of equipment out there to have. But I just hope that if there's any question if we're bringing revenue to town, I'd be open for any questions regarding that. I'm not a public speaker, so I appreciate all of your consideration. I really hope that this could be considered a valuable step to take forward. I know there's risk in this, but boy, I know what risk is. We've poured everything out. So anyway, I just hope that, just a wise decision could be made, and I just hope that, and that's all I have. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify during this public hearing? State your name and who you represent, please.
I'm not a public speaker either, so. I'm Casey Knight. I'm a member of the Harbor Board, but I'm speaking for myself. I have 3 related points to make about this, or opinions to express. The first point. On February 21st, the Harbor Board held a meeting where one of the main goals was to attempt to clarify the conditions under which a Tidelands lot might be sold instead of being leased. In the work session involving the Assembly and the Harbor Board held earlier in February, members of the Assembly appeared to coalesce around the idea that this issue needs to be revisited. The Harbor Board did come to an agreement about this, which would change in a few significant ways the section of Borough Code pertaining to the sale of tidelands. However, at that meeting, we did decide to table Island Refrigeration's application. The reason is that we could not come to a decision about whether to sell the lot before first arriving at a better procedure for selling tidelands lots. And we didn't know where the Assembly would land on that issue. In my mind, to decide to sell without having an ironed out procedure would put the cart before the horse. It's almost like shaking hands to sell something without first arriving at a price. Okay, second point. One of the most significant changes that we arrived at would be to change the sale price to be not less than assessed value, from that to not less than appraised value. That was one of the changes. The appraised value of the lot is $414,000 apparently, and the assessed value is, as far as I can tell on the website, there is $237,000. So there's a big difference there. I'm not sure which way the Assembly is leaning on that issue, but either way you lean, I respectfully encourage the Assembly to adopt an official budgeting policy of routing the proceeds from the sale of Tidelands parcels and any parcels from which the harbor receives lease revenue to the Harbor Enterprise Fund. I also respectfully request that the proceeds from the prior sale of the Weecon Enterprises land be routed to the Harbor Enterprise Fund. At the February 21st Harbor Board meeting, these 2 requests were turned into recommendations in our first order of new business. Third point, and believe it or not, this isn't in contradiction to the first point. All that being said, I do believe that the application submitted by Island Refrigeration is a good candidate for satisfying the conditions under which it would be appropriate to sell currently leased tidelands. But I also think it'd be preferable to avoid any confusion about this by revisiting the Harbor Board's recommendations on this issue. I invite the Assembly to please take a look at the upshots of that February 21st Harbor Board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify to this or under this public hearing?
Hello, Harbor Master Glow Wallen, and under the public testimony, I'd like to speak to this as well. I am, as staff, 100% in support of Brock and Island Refrigeration and all that he's doing for our community, and however we can make this work for him, I think is a good starting point. So I appreciate that. But there are some big questions left, I believe, that have been not discussed and probably need to iron those out before, lending official support. Where is the Assembly on this idea of the marine industrial overlay? We talked about that the idea was hatched at the work session. The Harbor Board met for 4 hours. Liz wrote up a nice idea. I reviewed it, sent it to the Harbor Board chair, and the last I heard it was at the attorney's desk, so I'm not sure where that is, and have the Assembly got a chance to weigh in and take a look at that. If that was in place, I think that's really favorable as an insurance that this port area remains marine industrial. Also would like to look at the application versus the appraisal. I think we need to include a partial identified as 01008242 2, plat number 64-176. It's roughly 4,000 square feet right behind the Coast Guard, and would bring the price up if we're using the appraisal price per square feet about $56,000 to the requested amount. And I say that because I looked at his application and where he's got some drawings on, it includes that. So just make sure that we're talking about apples and apples. Also talking about the maintenance of the driveway. Chris weighed in as Public Works Director that, it's probably worth considering that that isn't a borough responsibility anymore, taking the driveway out of that equation of that chunk, the piece of property that goes between the Coast Guard and Weekon's, who's gonna plow it, who's gonna fill the potholes, those kind of things. And then to be clear that the assumption is that we get the appraised value versus the assessed value, just making sure that that's what you would sell it for, because this is very valuable hunk of borough property, and I hope that you do the public the service of getting the most you can out of it. And then finally, but surely, where does that money go? The 400,000 or 500,000 that could be realized from the sale could do a lot for the harbor enterprise to take it and develop another piece of property for benefit to the community, whether it's up in the middle harbor, adding square footage for parking lot where we know we desperately need development up there, or at least to make up for lost income. It could be, squirreled away in that harbor enterprise fund and live off the interest like we have a habit of doing here in Petersburg. And to offset the original development costs that the harbor enterprise incurred when we originally developed it. So those are the big things. I think this is really exciting to see young people, looking towards planning for the future. And like I've said before, this particular business has my support because it is putting Petersburg on the map in the marine industrial world. And if you were entertaining selling it to something non-marine industrial or going up for auction or something like that, and there might be, somebody else interested that wouldn't do this, then I probably wouldn't support it. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
For your testimony. Anyone else in the audience like to participate in this public hearing today? Okay, seeing none, that public hearing is closed. Now on to bid awards on the agenda. There are no bid awards. Brings us to item 7, which is persons to be heard related to items on today's agenda. Please state your name and who you represent. Step to the podium. 5-minute limit, so.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. My name is Almont Lindsay. I represent myself. Good afternoon. My name is Almont Lindsay. I own Lot 6, Block 2 in the Frederick Point East subdivision. I'm not sure if people realize there are 2 blocks in the Frederick Point East neighborhood. Block 2 is not on the beach. It is back in the woods. I don't know if you all realize I must walk through this proposed discharge of firearms area to get from my car to my property, or from my property to my car, even during hunting season and in the fog and or rain. Would you all really like to have to walk through a legal discharge of firearms area? Going to or coming from your home, I seriously doubt you would. Please, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Removing the safety guidelines that are currently in place shows an absolute disregard for human life. The government is supposed to make laws that protect the people they serve. I thought as an elected official, you have been sworn to protect and serve the people of Petersburg, not to put them in the line of fire from firearms. Homesteaders' lives matter. If you look at the area in question, you can see a shooter will either be aiming towards the direction of the private property where I must walk towards to get back to my car, or if they turn around 180 degrees, they'll be aiming towards the road where my car is parked. If they shoot to the left, they'll be aiming across trails going to private property. And if they shoot to the right, they'll be aiming in the direction of trails going from the road to private property as well. This situation creates a deadly accident waiting to happen. Currently, if someone wants to hunt around the Frederick Point East neighborhood, all they have to do is walk across the street and shoot in a direction not facing the road. This is not very difficult to do. The amount of land that can be hunted on Mitkoff Island without endangering a homesteader's life is very large in comparison to the size of this neighborhood. This is Alaska. Anyone can look at a map and realize what a small area this is in relation to the surrounding area, even if you shrink your zone to just Mitkoff Island. I have a map of Mitkoff Island. I would like to enter into the public record, if I may. Gentlemen, and I was presumably the one gentlelady that's absent today. I have no ulterior motive. The goal of my speech is to protect human life. How many people have starved so far on Mitkoff Island from not being able to hunt the Frederick Point East neighborhood? Another thing to consider is gut piles. If people are hunting, they will shoot deer. After they shoot a deer, they will gut it and leave the guts in the field. This will attract bears. A bear on a gut pile becomes a dangerous animal. A bear will not back off a gut pile, and this will create a dangerous situation for a homesteader walking to his property or to his car. There is no need to interject this hazard into someone's life. If someone gets shot in the Frederick Point East area after the 6 or presumably 7 of you all remove the safety guidelines, the victim's blood is on your hands. You can stop this deadly accident waiting to happen today. All you have to do is say no to this. All it takes is for 4 of you to say to yourselves, I don't want to be responsible for a homesteader or his friends or family getting shot while walking to their camp or cars during hunting season. I don't want to have to look a mother in the eye after her son or daughter got shot by some guy who thought he heard a deer, moose, bear, wolf, or whatever. Please, just be a responsible adult. Have the courage to say no. Just say no to this deadly accident waiting to happen. When dealing with guns, it's much better to be safe than it is to be sorry.
Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you, sir. I have these 2 maps I got.
Oh, you can hand them to the clerk. Thank you. Anybody else in the room that would like to participate, persons to be heard related to the items on today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to persons to be heard on items unrelated to today's agenda.
We have someone on the phone, Catherine Kowalski would like to speak
Oh,
related
okay,
to
I
the
didn't-
agenda.
Just calling in.
Catherine, go ahead.
Okay, Catherine.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. For the record, my name is Catherine Kowalski, and I'm representing myself in Petersburg Rexall Drug. To begin my testimony, number 1, there is a resolution on the agenda for the patient freedom of pharmacy choice and access. Number 2, I need to provide some information as to the history of pharmacy benefit managers, or more commonly referred to as PBMs, and their role in our current healthcare system, and the very reason for this resolution. Pharmacy benefit managers evolved in parallel with the pharmaceutical manufacturing and health insurance industries. They have been a part of the healthcare system for decades. However, their roles have increased, and now 3 major PBMs control 80% of the market. These players are Express Scripts, CVS, and Optum Rx. The PBM's original model was to help employers and insurers select and purchase medications for their plans. In addition to negotiating discounts with manufacturers, PBMs set terms for pharmacies that buy and dispense medications to patients. In short, they have become the dominant middleman among manufacturers, pharmacies, insurers, employers, and patients. Their power is vast and formidable. In 2018, the Alaska State Pharmacists took on a bill sponsored by Representative David Guttenberg. This bill eliminated a gag clause by the PBMs. These contractual clauses prohibited pharmacists from voluntarily informing patients that the prescription medications may cost less if paid directly as a cash transaction instead of their insurance. We won that battle, passed the bill. Petersburg Rexall received the distinguished honor for the sight of that bill's signature from our former governor, Governor Walker. Needless to say, the fight continues. Our current bill, SB 121, and companion bill, House Bill 226, are critically important to pharmacies and patients to assure continuation of access to prescription services in a safe, reliable manner. The heart of this bill advocates for patient freedom of pharmacy choice and the urgent need for PBM reform. Presently, PBMs mandate where patients can get their prescriptions. The PBMs often steer patients into networks of preferred mail or specialty pharmacies. These PBMs often own these very pharmacies and drive business away from Alaska and into their very profitable non-transparent companies. Since 2018, 25% of independent pharmacies across Alaska have been closed as a consequence of the unfair practice by the PBMs. Although we won one battle and a bill, the PBMs have found other ways to circumvent and inflict their predatory business models upon us. This issue is very serious, complicated, convoluted, and it needs changed. We have the support of the Alaska Native Health Board and all tribal associates, the Alaska Hospital and Healthcare Alliance, the Alaska Primary Care Associates, the Alaska Medical Board, the Alaska Board of Pharmacy, the Alaska National Association of Chain Pharmacies, which include Fred Meyer's, Carr's, Walgreens, and Costco, the Alaska Independent Pharmacists, our Alaskan Attorney General, and the National Association of Attorney Generals. Most recently, we received the support of Representative Rebecca Himshoot. She signed on as a co-sponsor to House Bill 226. I just want to express my gratitude to Assemblyman Lynn for suggesting this resolution, and to the people of Petersburg who have supported this bill either through testimony or with your signatures of support. In closing, thank you, Assemblyman, for your time and your consideration. It is my sincere hope you will recognize the importance of this bill moving forward and support this resolution. I yield my time and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for your testimony today, Mrs. Kowalski. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thanks again for your testimony. Is there anyone else calling in or in the room that would like to participate in items on today's agenda? Seeing none, now we'll go to item 8, persons to be heard on items unrelated to today's agenda. Are there any, is there any interest in the audience? Don't see any, and nobody's calling in for this particular. Okay, thank you. That brings us to the mayor's report. There's no written mayor's report today, but I would like to personally thank the Alaska Hawaii Moose Association for holding their mid-year conference, their 79th one, and Academy of Friendship session from March 20th to March 22nd. Brought a lot of business to the hotels. HIP, Humanity and Progress, received a $2,600 check from them, and that was compiled from money from all of the moose lodges around the state. So that was it was well attended. I visited the function a few times, and it was well attended. So I'm sure it was a financial boon for Petersburg. On another note, I will be out of town May 6th. I will try to zoom in. Where I will be at is marginal internet service. So if I can't get dependable service, I'll try to zoom in and just participate and let Vice Mayor Marsh or whoever run the meeting. And that's it for my report. That brings us to the manager's report, Mr. Giesbrecht. No, I guess we're not there yet.
Yeah.
You're down the list a ways. Boards, commission, and committee reports, there are none. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. They're both from the same business, Keto's Cave. One application is for a package store license renewal application. The other is for Keto's Cave Beverage Dispensary License Renewal Application. I'd entertain a motion to vote on both of those items at once. So I entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
No discussion, so all those in favor say aye, or clerk call the roll on this one, please.
Rob,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the consent agenda items pass unanimously. That brings us to report of other officers, and we have a report from Mr. Hofstetter, the CEO of the Petersburg Medical Center.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Phil Hofstetter, Petersburg Medical Center, CEO. A few things of highlight. One thing I'd like to also, I didn't put in my report, but I would like to support Kate Kowalski's message about Senate Bill 121. We also support that. We also, at Petersburg Medical Center, and I'm a part of the Alaska Hospital Healthcare Association, which we also provide a letter of support. I'd like to thank Petersburg Medical Center staff on the health fair that we had in March. It was well attended. We had over 500 community members that went to our blood draw, which is about over 2,000 blood lab tests that our staff had completed. So it was a tremendous turnout. We had 30 vendors on the day of the health fair, and there's a lot of excellent opportunity. And I think we almost had 200 community members attend during the day. So it was a very well attended health fair. Thank you to the community, also Parks and Rec for providing that space. So on the financial side of note is we were able to receive on our cost report approximately $1 million, which we were able to put back into our reserve. As you know, as I reported out in the last couple of years, post-COVID, it's been pretty challenging. And so the cost report is a true-up system, and finally be able to get a little bit of a return off of that. And that's about half of our reserve that we had used during our recovery for COVID. So things are looking more optimistic. From the new facility side, the thing that I reported out at the board meeting last week, we have a change in our owner's rep. So as the project is progressing and there's some more construction occurring, our owner's rep that I've been working with for a few years, Jay Farmwald, he's not able to, be here in the community. So the goal was always to transition to a owner's rep firm that's able to meet that need, and we provided a RFP, and Arcadis is the group that's going to be providing that, which I've had experience with working with Mike Cruz, who's the senior project manager on that team. So working through that transition. Let's see. Specialty clinics, we're expanding some opportunities. We had Peace Health here last week, the CEO and orthopedic surgeon, and we're trying to build out some relationships with other opportunities for the community to have routine specialty clinics. So we're excited about moving some of those forward. And in addition to some of our other clinics like derm and optometry and also our scopes. So, and that's those are the highlights. Any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Hofstadter? Thank you for your report, and I'm glad you're back safe from your small bike ride.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Okay, now we have a summary of the SEPA board meeting from March 14th, 2024, from Assemblymember Lynn.
Yes, thank you. The four of us here, Carl, myself, the mayor, and Member Fine Walsh attended that meeting. And these are the notes from that meeting, and I'm going to read here. SEPA ended fiscal year 2023 with a net income of $780,868 compared to $638,722 in 2022. The increase is a result of Petersburg buying more power from SEPA as a result of Crystal Lake Hydro being rebuilt, and also low growth in Ketchikan that resulted in higher sales than anticipated in that community. Power sales to the three communities increased by about 3.5% in 2023. There has always been a focus on safety. However, 2024, SEPA transitioned to a service called the Health and Safety Institute as the agency's safety training system. To date, the online modules with accountability have been accepted by the staff and effective in continuing the safety culture that SEPA's had. The board awarded brushing and clearing contracts to Copper Ridge LLC based in Ketchikan to accomplish the next scheduled phase of the agency's vegetation management plan. The board approved contracts for the Ketchikan substation upgrade design and is hoping to include the Rango transformer upgrade design in the consultant's scope in the future. Both have been on the replacement and renewal plan and are critical to continue service to both Rango and Ketchikan. The Petersburg transformer is in good condition with plenty of capacity. SEPA applied for a $4 million grant through the Alaska Energy Authority for the Tyee Third Turbine Project. The grant application made the list and the AE recommended to the legislatures that $4 million, the full amount SEPA requested, be funded. The third turbine offers many benefits to the three communities through additional spinning inertia, additional generation capacity, and increased ability to meet peak generation requirements to the member communities. The board approved modification to the job requirements of a control systems engineer who may work remotely, but also travel to Ketchikan and/or the hydro sites monthly. The agency has been trying to fill the position for more than 3 years and has increased the salary and benefits 3 times. One applicant turned the job down after looking at housing availability. The CEO has a prospective candidate currently in mind, and the skills this individual would bring to the agency are critical to the federal energy relicensing that we're going to be doing. The Tyee Third Turbine Project, substation upgrades, and more is all part of that also. The board approved a contract with Kleinschmidt Associates, Inc. to work on the Tyee Lake FERC license amendment that will focus on adding the third turbine. The board discussed SEPA's investment policy and a conceptual cash policy and asked that reviews of these policies occur at the next board meeting. The CEO is reviewing a draft report on the prospects of adding solar power to the SEPA system and will provide more information to the board about how this type of energy may be integrated into the grid at the next board meeting. The Tyee lake level is in extremely good condition. As of February 28th, the lake level was 1375 which means 85% full. That is 60% above the curtailment curve. By comparison, that is 45 feet higher and 30% fuller than we were at that date last year. The lake level at Swan is also in a very healthy condition. As of February 28th, the lake was at an elevation 325 and 75% full. By comparison, this is 15% higher and 25% fuller than it was at that date last year. 2024 model predictions call for a transition from El Nino to La Nina weather patterns. The present forecast is for a change from above average oceanic temperatures starting in June to below average oceanic temperatures throughout the summer in the northern hemisphere. In theory, this will result in a warm, wet spring, early summer changing to a cooler, drier late summer and fall, winter. Snow surveys will be conducted in April by SEPA staff, and we will have more information at that time in regard to the snowpack's health and impact to the lake levels for the spring and summer. SEPA's next board meeting will be in Wrangell on June 26th and 27th. And with that, that completes the report. Unless I open it, does Carl or the mayor or Member Time Walsh have anything to add?
Nothing to add, Carl. Member Fine Walsh, do you have anything to add from the SEPA meeting in Ketchikan?
No, I think Member Lynn did a great job of summarizing the key points there. I will say I was really happy to attend, and it was a very interesting meeting. And I'm really excited about the future of SEPA and our community as Ketchikan and Wrangell and Petersburg are all on paths to growth. I think SEPA is going to be a really important part of that. So I'm really thrilled to be involved.
And I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mr. Lynn, for that. Any questions of Member Lynn? Nope, I think you pretty much covered it. Okay, now it's the manager's report. They're usually back to back. They threw me for a loop. I should have picked up on that one. So Manager Giesbrecht.
Thank you, sir. Spring maintenance is in full swing in the harbors. The crew are busy putting the snow equipment away and cleaning up the floats and parking lots. Our tour ship schedule has firmed up with the bankruptcy filing in February by the Ocean Victory parent company. We have dropped to 104 stops for the upcoming season. Harbor staff is working with the Corps of Engineers to schedule the completion of the dredge disposal site survey for mid-May. This should finalize the project, complete all the required aspects of closing out the job, other than hosting a ribbon cutting. Project manager has asked if Petersburg Borough would join members of the Corps in celebrating the project completion at a ribbon cutting on May 19th at 11 a.m. during the Little Norway Festival.
Harbor Department will continue to aid the Corps in event planning and keep the Assembly updated. Harbor Master Wallen spent some time this past week talking to a documentary film company about issues related to the abandonment of the Ocean Ranger program aboard the large tour ships transiting Southeast Alaska. We talked about issues related to this growing industry and both the burdens as well as the economic opportunities associated with Alaska's unique environment. Harbor staff are working with the Harbor Board to review a draft concept of the marine industrial overlay could be used to identify borough properties that could best serve the community for higher marine industrial use. Sounds like that's in the hands of our attorney. Wastewater staff has found that the draft permit from EPA should be issued within the next couple of weeks. It will be sent to ADEC and the local tribe for initial comments prior to the full public posting and comment period. Wastewater Department consultant has been apprised of the schedule and will be helping staff to formulate meaningful comments on the draft permit. Our Power and Light staff met with the Department of Energy Hydro Efficiency Grant Administrator on March 28th for the first negotiation meeting. Power and Light has already sent the agency various information in response to their pre-award requests. The negotiation process is focused on how each project owner will comply with reporting and milestone achievement during the work. Since we're already done with the work, this should be actually pretty straightforward for us. Power and Light wishes to acknowledge the work of Pam Jensen, who is retiring from the utility this month. Pam has done a great job representing Power and Light through her interactions with the customer base of the utility and has helped many that have come through our doors. We wish her the best of luck and thank her for her efforts. The assessor is currently working on appeals. If an appeal cannot be settled, then it'll be going to the Board of Equalization at the April 15th Assembly meeting. Mayor Jensen and I met with Executive Director of the Mental Health Land Trust to discuss the proposed South Mitkoff subdivision. She made it clear the trust is willing to move on to another subdivision if the borough does not approve the plat. Mayor Jensen and I explained the Assembly's concerns. She asked the borough if there was interest in signing the plat with the understanding the trust would try to do an analysis to see if building roads in the subdivision would pay off for them. We also mentioned Senator Stedman was working on a possible solution, but would not be available to the next legislative session. Petersburg will be hosting a transportation meeting set up by Alaska Municipal League to talk about regional transportation issues. We've invited PIA, Alaska DOT, Alaska Airlines, Chamber of Commerce, Forest Service, and Breakaway Charters. AML will facilitate the meeting and Petersburg will take care of local logistics. Borough staff, including Liz and Chris, have also been invited. We are planning how to turn a couple of our rooms at assisted living into double occupancy that would, and what we would need to do to make that happen. Would increase some of our revenue issues up there. Assisted living is working on a reasonable way to get the Medicaid payments for the last 3 years onto their new Medicaid's new program that will help streamline the audit process. Parks and Rec will again be joining forces with the U.S. Coast Guard and Auxiliary School District, Alaska State Troopers, and the Petersburg Rotary for the annual Kids Don't Float event on April 22nd at the Aquatic Center. Please keep an eye out for information coming out in the next few weeks. Managers and supervisors of the Streets Department and Water and Wastewater Utilities met to discuss prioritization and scheduling of upcoming in-house maintenance and construction projects involving these departments. We are working with HR and Borough Administration to draft an apprentice mechanic program to incorporate into our motor pool operations plan. This may be one way that we can address our ongoing staffing shortage in the motor pool department. Our new fleet fueling system has been ordered. This hardware and software package will replace our decades-old DOS-based system that is no longer supported. Karen is working with the supplier to preload as much data as possible into the new equipment with the goal of minimizing startup time once we have everything on site. Sanitation Department staff are working with DEC and Southeast Conference to wrap up the remaining logistical details for the upcoming Rural Alaska Landfill Operator class that we held in Petersburg, April 8th through the 11th. Personnel from Petersburg and several other Alaska communities are expected to attend this class, which we've primarily focused on solid waste baling operations. CSWA, or the Southeast Alaska Solid Waste Authority, is working cooperatively with the Southeast Conference and the City and Borough of Sitka, submitted a grant application to Denali Commission for Regional Solid Waste Management Planning Funds. If the application is successful, the CSWA could receive up to $500,000 for study and planning efforts for solid waste disposal in the southeast region. And Director Cotta and Finance Director Tao have been assisting me and with Deerstone Consulting, that's the consulting company, helping us prepare a grant application to the Denali Commission for potential improvements to the Banana Point breakwater. The match for the borough is actually only 10% at this point, and we may be able to count some of our already expenses towards that match. So we'll know more later. And that's it, unless there's questions.
Questions on the manager's report? I'd just like to add that conversation the manager and I had with Justy Warner, I believe it was. Yeah, he called me when we were leaving Ketchikan from the SEPA meeting, and so we returned the call. So what she told us, like the manager mentioned, that there's a tract of land, mental health land up in the interior, that they'll move on to that. This was their number one project. If we don't, basically sign the plat. It was brought to my attention by a local contractor that they've been dealing with mental health for, I think it's been 7 years, trying to get some land conveyed to them so they could expand their rock pit. And one of the comments that the representative from the company in town told me was that Petersburg doesn't want to do business with us because we're not signing the plat. So something we should look into, I think. I don't know how to approach it. When we were in Juneau, Senator Stedman did say that he was working on some kind of a financial structure that could be repaid so mental health could put roads in. And like you remember in our work session, we told him that a couple of us said we thought the land would be more valuable if it had roads. And that being said, I ran into a gentleman in town the other day that used to do timber sales, the harp, and he walked that land out there and he figured how much it would cost to build the roads, and on his opinion was the land would be worth more money. So anyway, but just something we need to address, and we don't want to hinder one of our local contractors from not, if it would make a difference if we signed it, if they would get what they want. So, and contacted David Scott in Senator Stedman's office after Steve and I had the conversation with mental health. And he said it's possible that what Senator Stedman is working on, but not probable that we'll pass this legislative session, but that people are warming up to the idea. So maybe mental health will have a new operating procedure. So I don't know where we'll go with that, but anyway, thank you, Steve. Member Swartz.
Yeah, I've had several individuals, not contractors, but individuals say it's become much more difficult to deal with last mental health land trust in the last little bit here, so.
Well, maybe we could be the guinea pig, I guess. Maybe they'll try something with us on part of that subdivision. So anyway, that brings us to unfinished business. First item is ordinance 2024-03, an ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2024 budget for known changes. This is the third and final reading. In the second reading, we made an amendment to add the elderly housing entrance repair project, and that is coming from their reserves. So there's currently 11 items on the supplemental budget. I'd entertain a motion to approve the supplemental budget, this ordinance in its third and final reading.
So moved.
Second. Motion been made by Member Newman, seconded by Member Stanton Gregor. Discussion. Member Schwartz.
Yeah, I voted no last time and been thinking about it quite a bit, but I've had input since. And I brought up number 9 or item 9, $60,000 for attorney fees. It's a mystery to me why members of the public have been approaching me. I had probably 5 phone calls this morning. And I don't know that they've approached anybody else. I can't speak for anybody else. The way that I see this, and I did over the last 2 weeks, write some notes down. And I have a feeling I'll probably vote differently today just because, but this is, the way I see it, is residue from COVID years. It was contentious. with individuals, with citizens, and I don't envy anybody that was in any leadership role at that time, including business owners, anybody in the public, assembly members, borough assembly members, people at the hospital. It's tough times. The idea that the frustration with this is coming from just a few and only on one side, I think is short-sighted. I think a lot of us are frustrated and there's no clear answer. And it wasn't easy times to navigate. Trying to be meticulous with my words here. It seems to people, and one of the reasons they're frustrated is we're continuing to pay for this, but they don't feel like they have the information. And I try to explain, and I'm not a lawyer, so I have to be really careful about that, but it's in a different realm now. Unfortunately, people's trust in the borough was eroded. But then I said, you know what? There was pushback. It was action, reaction, action, reaction. There were 487 signatures in 2 days against the emergency ordinance. So there was a freedom rally, you know, that was well attended. There was 26 different businesses in town pushed back. And there was a response to that. And that ordinance did not pass. So anyhow, I told him I'd voice it. I'm voicing it. There's concerns with this, and I think, just as I don't envy any of the other leaders, I didn't envy Chief. And I think one side of the issue sided with him and the others didn't, and that's the way that goes. I just, when we're paying for these lawyers, there's more of the story, I think, than just Chief Kerr's lawsuit and Don Koenig's. Don Koenig's was not the only person in this town to have a request for information, and they're not satisfied. So that being said, you can tell me where I'm wrong. Thank you.
Any other discussion on ordinance 2024-03, the supplemental budget? Member Stattenberger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just be brief. I'll be voting for this today. You know, a lot of mention has been made about the 60K and the Kerr and Koenig's lawsuits. Two pieces of that. One, if members in the future want to do a specific action item to put ourselves on record about dealing with those lawsuits and paying for them or not, that seems like a separate thing. Right now, no one has made a motion, and I'm glad, but it happened in the first two to remove that 60K. Those listening at home, that would have meant we could have no more ordinances until the budget cycle is over. Because every time a city ordinance, borough ordinance is created, gets run through the attorney. Another example would be employee disciplinary actions run through the attorney. So if members in the future want to address those lawsuits in particular, I'd suggest doing them on an individual basis so that the borough can actually, you know, use the attorneys for things like ordinances and such, just for some context for those listening at home. Thanks.
Any other discussion on ordinance 2024-03? Clerk, call the roll.
Rob,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2024-03 passes unanimously with Assemblymember Marsh excused from the meeting today. That brings us to ordinance 2024-04. This is an ordinance amending section 10.20.010, discharge of firearms prohibited of the Petersburg Municipal Code to remove prohibition of discharge of firearms in the area of Frederick Point East subdivision. This is the third and final reading. I'd entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its third reading.
So moved. Second.
Who made the motion? Member Newman, motion made by member Newman, seconded by member Lynn. Discussion.
I'll say something. I feel compelled to say something just because I feel like you are so, you're so passionate about your plea to not pass this ordinance. Yeah, I'm a master hunting guide in the state of Alaska. I'm also a hunter education instructor. I'm in support of this ordinance, but I would like to speak to your plea. I don't think, in my opinion, that passing this ordinance is going to pose a real or present danger to the situation of the parking on the Frederick Point Road system. It's not going to be any different than anybody that lives up and down the Narrows or anybody that lives out the road. The same rule will apply. So basically, by passing this ordinance, you're going to be in line with everybody else that lives in or near Petersburg. So I wish you the best. I don't think that this is a major safety issue, and I'll leave it at that.
Member Schwartz.
Mr. Lindsay, I want you to know that we have listened and heard you. Thank you.
Any other input? Any other discussion? I don't see member Fine Walsh looking to speak, so clerk call the roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2024-04 passes unanimously in its third and final reading. That brings us to item C under unfinished business. That's ordinance 2024-05. This is an ordinance determining that property conveyed to the borough in a tax foreclosure proceeding shall not be retained for a public purpose and shall be hereafter be sold. This is only the second reading. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by member Stanton Gregor, seconded by member Newman. Discussion. Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Mark,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The ordinance 2024-05 passes unanimously in its second reading. That brings us to, excuse me, new business. First item there is resolution 2024-05. This is a resolution in support of Senate Bill 121, House Bill 226, protecting patient freedom of pharmacy choice and access to medications. I'd entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made with a second. Discussion. Berlin.
Yeah, thank you. I put that on the agenda for a couple reasons. After studying it in some detail, and it's very complex, and I would say probably don't totally understand it, but two things that I think it really does is, if it would to pass, one is it makes in Alaska a much more transparent to see what the real drug costs are. And it has the potential to drive individual prescription costs down if it can be done the way it's proposed in those bills. And I think that has some advantage. The other thing is that I think it has a cost containment ability in there by allowing the different pharmacies and so forth to look at competition on drug costs. And so those are the two reasons why I'm really supportive of that. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on resolution 2024-05? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Bob,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the resolution passes unanimously. That brings us to item B under new business. It's assignment of Trident Seafoods Corporation lease to E.C. Phillips and Sons Incorporated. E.C. Phillips and Sons is in the process of purchasing the Trident Seafoods Petersburg plant and requests to assume the Trident lease. The lease assignment should be contingent upon the closing of the sale of 301 Harbor Way to E.C. Phillips and Sons Incorporated. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this lease transfer.
So move.
Second.
Newman, seconded by member Lim. Discussion.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, there is a suggested
I see this.
motion, and I think the reason for that is that it needs to say contingent on the closing of the sale in the motion.
That should probably be included, yeah. So, someone read the suggested motion?
I'll read it. So I move to approve assignment of the Trident Seafoods lease contingent on the closing of the sale of the Trident Seafoods plant located at 301 Harbor Way to E.C. Phillips Incorporated.
Second.
Motion been made by member Newman, seconded by member Schwartz. Any discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the lease transfer is passed unanimously, and hopefully the sale signs today like I was informed that it may. Okay, item C, Island Refrigeration LLC application to purchase borough-owned tidelands. Island Refrigeration has filed an application to purchase borough-owned tidelands located on the south side of Dock Street. Legal description, a portion of Wilson Tideland Lease, Plat 2000-6, T37, parcel ID 01010-035. The Planning Commission recommends the Assembly approve the sale of the tidelands. Borough Code, Section 16.12.005, leasing preference states, the orderly development of the borough with due consideration towards ocean resource harvesting, economic development, public recreation, and public service centers, combined with dwindling municipal revenues and limited land available for public purposes, supports a strong preference toward leasing land versus outright sale of land. Borough Code 16.16.070, sale of tideland states, in isolated and necessary instances, the Assembly may sell tracts of tide and submerged lands which are not needed for public purposes, and sales of tide and submerged land shall not be made for consideration less than the assessed full and true value as established by the borough assessor. And the Assembly shall hold a public hearing to consider this disposal of the tidelands, and at the hearing, the benefits of the sale of subjected tideland that could not be realized through leasing must be clearly demonstrated. And an applicant for purchase of tidelands must conclusively demonstrate that outright sale of tideland as contrasted with lease of the tideland is in the borough's best interest. And the comprehensive plan, waterfront plan adopted by the Assembly in 2016 suggests Petersburg change zoning policies to be more strategic about the use of waterfront land for water-dependent uses. And the adopted land use map suggests the tidelands being considered for sale be designated as waterfront, a water-dependent commercial or industrial with an intended use prioritized for water-dependent commercial or industrial uses. And per the Borough Code, Section 16.12.080E, the Assembly shall determine whether the application shall move forward in the application process or be denied. If it is to move forward, the Assembly shall schedule a public sale or exempt the application and disposal from the public sale. If the application and disposal are exempted from the public sale, the assembly may authorize the borough manager to commence negotiations for disposal, the final terms of which are subject to approval by the assembly. For the purpose of this agenda item, the assembly shall satisfy the requirements of step 1 and 2 above. A resolution to approve the application moving forward in the manner determined by the assembly will be drafted for the April 15th meeting today. Oh, no, in 2 weeks. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this application to purchase this land by Island Refrigeration.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we approve the application to move forward and for it to be exempt from public sale and to authorize the borough manager to commence negotiations for disposal, the final terms of which subject to approval by the assembly.
Second.
Second.
Motion been made by member Stanton Greger, second by member Lim. Member Stanton Greger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of reasons. I thought some very good points were raised by Community Member Knight and Harbor Master Wallen today. And I think those can be addressed. One of those being the appraised versus assessed value. I know we've leaned towards appraisal, and I think that can be dealt with in negotiations by the borough manager and Mr. Snyder. Another one being, and I think very valid, this may be a separate action item, but having the funds of this potential sale allocated towards the Harbor Enterprise Fund. I think that would be a key piece also that can be, as Member Newman said earlier, will be discussed earlier, we've all spoken to that. I don't think that'll be a barrier, and if nothing else, it can be a part of the negotiations. And I know we've had debates of whether or not to sell borough leases. I've spoken out, I was frustrated with the previous process around that. I'm definitely voting yes today, as I said, a couple of reasons. One, I think Mr. Snyder has illustrated very clearly the benefits to the community and of sale versus lease to his business. And for those who don't live and breathe borough business, Mr. Snyder has been very attentive to detail, been very open and transparent, and been reached out, I know, to several of us assembly members, and I was privy to getting a great tour of his business, and I think it checks all the boxes for selling a lease, and I wish him, if this passes, I wish him luck in all of his endeavors. Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes,
and
this is
to-
Manager Giesbrecht.
Thank you. One of the things that I'm suggesting would be if the assembly approves everything as put forward, we can put in the resolution some of those items that Harbor Master Wallen, like who plows and maintains the driveway and the actual price that we negotiate. That will be in the resolution. The assembly can always amend that at that meeting. I'll include a section where the proceeds go as well, and the assembly can change that or go with whatever it is. So it kind of solves all of that at the next meeting, if that's how the assembly wants to proceed.
Okay, I like it. So, and any other input from assembly members? Member Newman.
So I would like some clarification. I went down to the harbor master's office this morning and looked at your proposal, that you have written out. And then it looks like it overlaps that 4,000 square foot parcel that has not been appraised. So there's a question of, is that an oversight on your part? Are you seeking to also purchase that other piece of property? I don't know.
Knew that was gonna be, I didn't know what I was doing when I first submitted the application. I'm sorry. I've learned a lot more and how complicated that could make this.
Excuse me, Mr. Snyder, just for the public listening, this is Mr. Snyder.
Sorry,
So-
yeah. Yeah, if, a lot of this pivots on the price that I'm able to get for it. So it definitely kind of corks that little chunk for whoever might use it, and it would be definitely usable by me if I can possibly afford it. If it needs to be done separately later, the pencil drawings that I made of the buildings on there can be scooched out of that. So I think I would apply for that later, just to make it not more complicated unless you guys think it would not be more complicated. So. yeah.
Okay, thank you for your answering that question. Member or Manager
Yeah,
Giesbrecht.
through the mayor to Assembly Member Newman. Yeah, it would be best for him to start that as a separate item with all the processes. That would be a step too far probably for me to put that in the resolution since it hasn't been voted on by P and Z and has not been appraised.
Yeah, it just looked, I mean, we're just seeking clarification on it because it's in the application packet and it's just like, what are we doing here? So.
Any other input? Member Schwartz.
Well, I know we're specifically looking at Mr. Snyder's application. We discussed during our work session with the harbor, the overlay Glo talked about and a clear procedure in the future. So wondering where we're going with that. It's related to this, but
I agree there are some questions still, but I'm gonna support this. I think it's better to have a young entrepreneur or entrepreneurs interested in buying a piece of land and starting a business to help the community and the region. If Mr. Snyder said he has boats that he could work on from all over Southeast and probably even stretching out farther than that. I think through the process, if we pass this and have the manager move forward with this, it's got to come back to us and hope, through that process, maybe we'll cross all the Ts and dot all the Is.
Through the mayor, if in fact I can get, if the overlay zoning code, I'll put it in that resolution. I just don't know that it'll be done by then.
I mean, that's my short feeling on it. Any other input from assembly members? Member Lynn?
I'm in supportive of anything keeping our business. I think it's excellent. But I have a question though, that I know that we don't have an answer for right now. If we're looking at a new process, this isn't the first time we run into the problem where an applicant can't get funding without purchasing the land. And I'm sure we're not the only borough that's run into that problem. I'm sure that's over Alaska. Has that been solved in other places? And is there a different process, that we need to look at? Because I don't think this isn't going to be the last time it comes up. So if we're going to redo it, should we be looking at our processes? Can we do something in our processes that would help us and help any kind of future applicant, that would come forward? And I don't have an answer for it. It's just a rhetorical question.
Through the mayor, Assembly Member Lynn, I think the banks do not like loaning money on leases. I just figured it out, but our local banks have not, at least here.
Well, Member Schwartz.
in relation to Bob's question, Glo, I think you have some information in regard to this, don't you? Could I ask you? I think you have some,
Yeah,
I forget the
think
wording of it, but
Well, I think there is a step that the borough needs to address when you go to allowing the bank to offer up a voucher of, we're okay with if, say, a person that owns this building leases the property, if they renege on their loan with the bank then would be able to reassess the property along with the sale of their building. The state does this all the time. There's all sorts of, these kind of options. This DOT does it. And for whatever reason, the borough needs to follow, I think, those guidelines of allowing the bank to agree to reselling a defaulted property and the lease goes along with it.
Through the mayor, one of the challenges we ran into on the WECON process was the local banks. Well, that sounds great, wouldn't sign off on that it needed to be marine related. So that was the issue, was they're willing to loan money on it, but if they have to foreclose, they want to be able to lease that to whoever they want at whatever business they want. That's where we ran into the problem. Now, I don't know how the state gets around that, but it's probably worth looking into. But that was the frustration I think the Wecons felt was, or not the Wecons, but the folks who were buying it from the Wecons, was the bank saying, we're okay with it, except we don't like that clause in the borough's lease that says it needs to be marine related, and they wouldn't sign off on it.
Well, it seems like if we had the overlay zoning in place, it seems
Maybe.
like it should be pretty straightforward what the zoning use of that piece of property is.
Maybe, yeah, that may solve some of it, but that's what we were hearing back from our local banks it was that clause about must be marine related, meaning the borough would have some authority over saying, no, you can't sell it to J. Stanton Gregor. And that's where the bank drew a line in the sand and said, not interested.
Well, at this point, I'm willing to move forward with the process personally. Could be my. So is there any other discussion? Member
I
Newman?
do know with DOT and aviation that there's a loan program, I believe it's through the Small Business Administration that addresses this. And they back the loan for a certain percentage. And so there's, a couple different lenders involved with the situation, but this is not aviation related. So you might very well run into the same caveat that you just described, but in the interest of time, and not making Mr. Snyder wait any longer, I think the overall benefit has been proved by virtue of the fact that are using the property as collateral towards the loan. And I think that's the benefit that's the proof that we need to be able to move forward, and I support this. I wish you the best.
Okay, so I was talking with Mr. Lynn, Assembly Member Lynn before the meeting, and under this, two items that we're supposed to meet, satisfy the requirements of both steps 1 and 2. So, determine if the application shall move forward in an application process or be denied. So I think the way the motion was made, it covers both of these.
I checked all the boxes,
So,
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Clerk call
And
the
Mr.
roll.
Mayor?
Yes, Member Fine Walsh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just chime in here at the end. I wanted to let Mr. Snyder know that I support this application as well. I really like to see new businesses, owning the land they operate on. I think that's really important. And it sounds like some of the more sticky questions will be addressed at this upcoming meeting, which hopefully I'll be able to attend. So I'll leave it at that and let us move on. But yeah, I support this certainly.
Okay, if there's no other input, will the clerk call the roll?
Bob,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so the manager will get with Mr. Snyder and good luck. Communications, there are communications on the agenda, but we make a habit of not reading them. They're on the agenda if a person wants to see correspondence we've had. That brings us to item 17, assembly discussion items. Assembly member comments. Any assembly members have comments today? I have a question more than a comment. A month or two ago, in the recent past, we addressed decided to auction off a Borough fire truck. I can't remember if it was number 5 or what number it was, but how's that process going leading up to, do we do all pieces of equipment at one disposal? Or I'm just kind of curious where we're at with that fire truck.
My fault. We had one of our other fire trucks kind of have a engine problem. And so we slowed down the process of getting rid of the older one, just in case. It kept blowing its,
Kept losing all of its engine oil.
thank you. And it happened several times. So we were a little concerned, and until we could figure out the cause of that and what was going on, we believe that's resolved at this point. And I spoke to Aaron this morning and said, we need to move forward with getting it on the auction block. We'll probably use a vendor called Gov Deals, which means it goes out basically nationwide. It's an online site and they take all the hassle out of it for us. Anyway, I'll leave that up to Aaron and Chris Scotta, who kind of manages that for us, but we'll get it on the market here pretty quick.
Glenn?
Yeah, to the manager, what does that, then the truck will go with, when you put it up for auction, will include all the equipment and as is, where is? How does that work?
Aaron?
We've stripped all the usable parts off of it that we can use for the fire trucks. It will be the truck with wheels, battery, and, no hose, no fittings, no axes, no ladders, none of that. That's staying with me.
It will include the tank, the water tank.
The inboard tank on the frame, yes.
Yes.
Will be a functional fire truck then, with the exception of those.
You can, if they buy the correct fittings and hose, yes. But, anything that was usable in the interest of saving the borough money and not having to repurchase it, we kept that for use.
So since it's turned into like I guess it is this comments turning into a little discussion. When we were originally gonna dispose of this fire truck for $1 to Hyder, what condition was it gonna be in when it transferred to the city of Hyder? Same, stripped?
Same condition, stripped, they would be responsible for supplying their own hose, their own fittings, their own axes, ladders. Same deal we're giving to them. That's why we're looking at giving it away cheap. That is what we have done in the past.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay, any other assembly members have comments? Any recognitions by assembly members? Member Swartz?
Well, just a comment, my thoughts are with you, Tom, you and Sarah, so waiting that baby.
Congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good luck. Phil, contact the clerk or send us an email. We want to know if we have a new, future student for the school system in Petersburg. Okay, if there's no other recognitions, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Gotta ask that. Meeting's adjourned.